Hi, my name's Anita Cantrell, and this video is going to be an overview of the Nord Stage 3. If you happen to be new to Nord keyboards, at first glance it could be a bit daunting. It was for me, with all of the knobs and buttons. There's so many buttons, so many knobs on the top panel of this keyboard. So what we're going to do in this video is break it down and go section by section what each of these things do, as much as I know. I've been playing the Nord Stage 3 now for a couple of years and I really love it. It's a fabulous keyboard. You have a lot of fun with it. If you do find this video helpful, please help me out by hitting subscribe. If you want to be notified as new videos are posted, turn on the notifications to receive notifications for that. So let's get right into it. So the first thing to notice when you first look at the top panel of the Nord Stage 3 is that it does not look like your traditional keyboard with perhaps a row of faders to the left, a main screen, and some kind of numerical pad or a bank of buttons that you can access patches with. Normally you would have a bunch of menus and sub-menus to access all of the effects and parameters. The Nord Stage 3 basically puts everything on the top panel. Everything is labeled. Every function of every knob, every button has a label as to what that function is. And we'll go over that in detail as we progress through these videos. But the top panel, you'll notice that the Nord Stage 3 has basically three engines. You have an organ, a piano, and a synth engine. So the top panel is divided in two sections. The first section is the organ section. Each section is outlined in gray and is labeled at the top. The next section is the piano section. You do have a main panel with a program section. Then we come to the right of that is the synth section. And beyond that, we have various effects. We have two different effects that have like six effects each that you can assign to either the organ, piano, or synth. And then you have delay, simulated amp, and EQ, compression, reverb. Yeah, so that is basically the top panel. So the first thing you want to learn how to do is how to turn the keyboard on. To turn on the Nord Stage 3, there's a label here at the top panel. It's labeled power on and off, and right behind there is a button that you actually push in or push out to turn it on and off. So now it's off, the button's out, push it in, and your Nord Stage 3 boots up. You see it booting up here in this program window. And there we are. So on the top panel, now that we have our keyboard turned on the top panel, you'll notice that each button, each knob, each control has a main function, and some of them have a sub function. The main functions are all listed at the top of the button, and the sub functions are located below the button. So how you access the main functions is just simply by turning or pressing the button. How you access the sub functions, you actually will utilize this main gray button, the only gray button. Well, it's not the only gray button, but this main gray button right here, the shift button, is how you access and control all the sub functions of the keyboard. So that's very important to know right there. So as I mentioned previously in the video, the front panel of the Nord is broken down into sections, and so I'll give you a brief overview of each section. There is the master volume, the pitch bend, the mod wheel, the master volume at the far left end of the keyboard. Moving on to the right, the first section you come to is the organ section. And above that, the audio in and outputs are labeled as well. There are 4 channel outputs, and you also have a headphone jack, a monitor in if you want to play back from some type of external device. And then all your pedals are all labeled sustain, control, and you can also attach a swell pedal for the organ and map the rotor control to that pedal, which is really cool. So the organ section, each section has power on and off. See, on and off, that's labeled there. And each section has a volume knob. That's the main knob at the top of each section. So that's the organ volume, or that turns the organ on and off, activates it, deactivates it. Below that, there is an octave shift button. So if a patch is really low, the low end, it sounds murky, you can raise the octave. You can use that. It's a very helpful feature during splits. When you split the board, we'll talk about that later. So next section is the piano section. We will do also a more in-depth video of each section in separate videos. So moving on from the organ section, we come to the piano section, which is just to the right of the organ section. And just like the organ section, we have our main volume control all the way down. You have the light indicates where the volume level is at. And below that is its on and off switch. When it's lit up, it's on. When it's off, it's off. Okay. Right below that is the octave, up and down for that. Below that, this is where you select your specific piano patches. You have 6 different banks of piano and electric piano sounds that you can choose from. The main one is the grand, and then you can cycle through all the different pianos. As you turn it, you can see in this main window, you have, I'll turn the pad off, you have little icons for each section. You have the organ section, the piano section, and the synth section in this main panel window. And this is where you can view and see what patches you have selected, what sounds you have selected. So I'm cycling through all the grand pianos right now. And yeah, I'm using Grand Imperial right now. Really like it a lot. Also, Grand Lady D is kind of another one of my go-tos that I use a lot. So the next bank would be the upright pianos, and you have several great ones in here. Love Rain piano. Love the black upright. Rain is kind of a yeah, it has some nice ambient tones to it. Really nice. The electric pianos, you have a number of those. They're great. Yeah, super awesome. Love them. So, and you can just cycle through those. Another one of my favorites is Ballad EP number 2. I'll turn the volume down a bit. Yeah, love it. So then, yeah, those are all that's how you change the piano settings. And there are 2 panels. You can have 2 pianos layered together. We'll cover that in a later video. Right now, this is just an overview. So moving on from there, you have a row of customize. These buttons allow you to customize how the piano sounds. So let's go to my favorite, Grand Imperial. So starting from the bottom, this is the one I use the most. If you want to sort of soften the way the piano sounds, like maybe during quiet moments, or you just want to try a more muted tone for effects, you can turn this effect on and have the two layers going, and have one that has no effects, that's clean, and then have another piano layered that perhaps has some effects on it. And then between the two volume knobs, you can mix those two together as you desire to create, some nice full sounds. So this is basically, the timbre is basically a built-in EQ that the Nord Stage 3 has for the piano. So soft is taking out some of the higher frequencies and letting the low come through, the lows and mids come through a little more. And then the mid is exactly what it says. It's a little bit brighter. It's enhancing the mid-range frequencies for the piano. Then the bright it creates almost like an upright, but it is a more punchier sound to that. So it's a cool thing to use. You can create some pretty interesting effects with that. Okay, next to the piano section is the program section. And above that, you do have some inputs on the back side of the panel. If you do not have, if you need to use a device that does not utilize USB, you do have MIDI in and MIDI out. And then like with the organ, they have a swell pedal. You also can connect a rotor pedal, and this is the one, that controls the rotor for the organ. That's an option. We can also talk about this right here, this top row of buttons on the program section, the morph assign. You can assign this allows you to assign the mod wheel to various parameters on the keyboard. I use it sometimes to control my synth volume. Sometimes it's easier when you're playing to touch the mod wheel than it is to do this. So I'll assign it to the volume, and we'll go over in a more in-depth video on how to do that. Sometimes I use it when I am using the organ. I almost always will assign the rotor control to the mod wheel, which is really cool. You can get a really great effect, almost like come close to a Hammond B3. Aftertouch, you can also use the assign. You can assign like volume, filter. Like the harder you hit it, the brighter the filter gets on the synths. We can talk about more of that in depth later. If you do have a control pedal connected, you can assign various parameters to that. Master click. This is used for if you're using the delay or a LFO, low frequency oscillator for the synth. You can tempo sync those effects through this master click button right here. You activate that by turning it on, turning it off. And then you hold it down and you can turn the tempo, adjust it that way. You can also tap it. That works too if you have to do that on the fly. So that's a handy feature. You just clear that out by hitting the exit button. Transpose, you activate that, turn it on, and then hold it down. While you're holding it, turn the main program knob to adjust the transposition. Turn that on, turn that off. Splits, you can create splits on the keyboard. I believe you can have up to 4 zones on the Nord Stage 3. I mainly just use 2. I have used 3 a couple of times. But yeah, you use this to set the split point. And once you activate it, you get this little screen, and you can change the split point by turning the main program knob. You can have, it looks like you have a low, mid, and high zone. So 3 zones. And then you control, just messed up my zone. Hold on. yes, these green lights on the top panel indicate where the split point is on the Nord Stage 3. So the green light is lit right here at F4. So I have piano over the whole board. You can change this so the piano is on just the low or the high zone by holding down Shift and tapping the on-off button. So now piano is on the high zone, right? So that's just a demonstration, and I have pad down here on the low zone. So you can see how that works. We'll talk more about that in depth in a future video. Okay, this is the main program knob. This allows you to change between programs, or you can use this and do it back and forth, just like that. Let's get back to my patch. So this goes by pages, so it's going 5 at a time. You have five programs, so a page is 5. So yeah, it stays on the one, but it keeps switching. So there you go for that. And then if you want to access the whole bank of sounds, hold down Shift. And then we're doing that. If you want to see a list of patches, see the list button right there. You would hold down Shift, turn this knob, and now you can scroll through them in a list view. Okay. And then to exit out of that, you just hit exit. Okay, below that, we can go into this more in depth in a future video. But I'm going to get back to my M11 patch here. Below this, you have more program controls, and these are like sub-menus that you can go into. You can use that to organize the patches, swap them, move them around. I also like to use the included software for the Nord. It's much easier than doing it through this little screen. You can organize your patches through the Nord editor software. So I do recommend you download that and take a look at it. And then these are just system menus, sound settings. You can go in and adjust more specific these parameters for each of these various areas. MIDI local control, that's where you can turn that on and off if you're doing sequencing or working with a computer and you don't want the Nord sounds to come through. You can turn that off if you just want to use it as a MIDI controller. External, this is where if you were going to connect another keyboard and run both of them simultaneously, use the Nord to control a second keyboard, that's where you would do that. And these are just basic utility settings here. And this button is very handy. It's a monitor, copy and paste. And this monitor button allows you, when you are setting parameters for a sound, when you are looking at, say, a synth pad, what you do is you hold this monitor button down. If you want to see what the factory setting is for that sound, you hold this button down and then you would touch, let's say like the filter. I'm going to move my video so you can actually see that just a little bit here. Holding down the Shift and then just gently touch that filter frequency knob, and you know that around 800 800 hertz was 880 was the factory setting for that synth pad. So that's helpful to know if you're trying to get something back to how it was. So that's what the monitor button does. If you want to copy and paste actual programs, you would use this button as well. Hold copy down, tap the program or the panel that you want to copy. Then go to the location you want to store it. Hold Shift, tap paste, and store it to that location. Also, that can be in a separate video. So next we'll move on to the synth section. So next we come to the synth section, and I'm just going to do a very brief overview because this is, you can get really, really deep into the synth section. It's really great. The Nord allows you to basically create a synth pad from scratch from just a sine wave. And you can make your own custom pads. It has a lot of great ones built in. I've downloaded patches that other producers have created for the Nord. You also have a sample editor that you can load your own samples onto the keyboard as well. But it's just like the other sections. It has a main volume control, on, off, the zone. You would change the zone by holding down Shift and tapping the on-off button. All 4 lights means it's over the whole board. The lower 2 lights means it's on the lower section below the green light. You can see the green light right there. Okay. And the high section means that it's above the green light of the split point. Below that you have the octave select. So whatever zone it's in, it's going to... Yep. So that's what that does, and you can see which octave it's on there. It's back to 0, down an octave, down 2, back to 0, up 1. That's as high as it'll go on this split. Wow. Okay. All right. So it's the same right there. That's the same as the piano section and the organ section. And then beyond that, we have a bunch of fun stuff. We have an LFO, low frequency oscillator. You have different settings for that. Then you have envelope settings. This is the main panel of where you know what patch you're on. So if I turn this, yeah, it's on Supersaw patch. That's a user created pad that I downloaded from Multitracks and then did some editing on it. So yeah. So the way that you access your patches is a little bit tricky. You have these buttons right here. It says mono and legato. But there's also mode underneath that. So if you just hit that button, it's going to activate mono and legato. Let's turn the piano off. So now your pad is just mono. Now it's full poly. Yeah, so that changes how your pad is going to sound. If you hold Shift, you activate the mode button. So let's see. Right now it's in user mode because the Supersaw is in a user bank. So if you want to cycle through the patches, all of them, what you want to do is hold Shift and make sure both of these lights are on. So then you're seeing the samples, factory samples you've loaded, plus your user patches. All the patches are listed when both of those lights are on. And you can activate a list. So you have the list here by holding down Shift and just turning that knob. Now, all right, so now we're in the user category. So you have a category select here in this window, and it's controlled by this knob, this oscillator knob. Allows you to cycle through all the different categories in the synth engine. So starting at the beginning, you have bass, choir, drums. These are all the sounds that can be saved to this engine. Okay. So then let's get to, we have synth classic, synth leads, pads. So this is the category selection. Then when you get to the category you want, then you're going to turn back to this main list knob that cycles through the list of patches that you have to choose from. So yeah, there's some great ones on here. This is one that I kind of tweaked. Turn the filter down. Yeah. Synth Strings 2. Once you found the patch that you want, you just hit exit. And so now it's on Synth Strings 2. It's hard to say. Okay, so we will go into depth more about how you can customize patches by changing the oscillators and using these controls. And then in the next section, you have, and this button is one you're going to want to get familiar with, the filter frequency knob. Let's see, I think I messed up my patch, so I'll come back to that. So that cleared out whatever I did, and now it's back to normal. So the filter, this is actually a low-pass filter, which just means that it filters out the higher frequencies and lets the lows come through. So if it's all the way down, it's not letting any frequencies come through. As you bring it up, it's letting more of the lows, and then the further you take it, more of the higher frequencies come through, which creates a soft, warm pad. You can take it from that to a really bright, punchy pad. You raise the octave. You can also adjust the attack. You can have a really fast attack. Normal, just make it sustain. You want to turn the decay all the way to sustain. Let's take that back down. And the release, you can adjust the release time by adjusting that there. Sometimes when you first will pull a pad up, the release time is really long and it's just mushy. So I usually have to go in just like that, is adjust the release slightly. Yeah, so you can have a lot of fun with that. There are 3 different low-pass filters. There's also a low-pass, high-pass, a bell pass, and just a regular high-pass. And this LPM is actually a low-pass Moog filter, which is really great. I love it. And then you have these add more resonance. You access the drive. You can control the drive, the filter, and make it have more punch. You really make a big pad. There you go. Yeah. Turn it off. Hit the button to turn the keyboard track off, the first third, the second third, and then turn the drive off completely. You can just keep customizing it until you get it, the way you like it. Yeah, nice, sweet. So you can spend hours just on the synth section. So we'll move on to the effects. So next, past the synth section is, like I said before, if you do have an external keyboard that you want to control through the Nord, this is where you would set that up. Beyond that, you have 2 different effects engines, and they can control either the organ, piano, or synth. And the way you do that, you turn it on. It's already preset to the piano, but the way you change that is by holding down, if you can see the shift knob, you can't, okay, is by holding down shift and then toggling through those as you're holding down shift. That's how you would change it from the effect being on the piano or the synth or the organ. So right now it's auto panned. Let's put it on the synth. Yeah. So you have pan. Let's see. Yep. So now it's on. We're going to turn. All right, stay on. auto pan, and this, you have the rate. This tells you how much of the sound you want come through. We'll go over that in more depth. So next to that you have, on this one you have auto pan, tremolo. I'm not entirely sure what RM is. Room. You have wahs. Cool. FX2, you have phasers, a flanger, vibrato, and chorus. That's cool to add, like on electric pianos. Phaser's cool for synth pads. Let's see. I've used the phaser. Lots of fun. Turn the filter up. You can get it really slow. Yeah, it's a cool effect. And then delay. I love delay on the pianos. You can also sync this to your master tempo that we talked about in the main program section. You activate that by holding down Shift and then just adjusting the knob. It turns on when that light is on. That means your tempo synced to the master tempo. You can adjust the amount of feedback, the decay. You also have a built-in filter to this. You can turn on the low-pass filter. It'll filter the frequencies as it echoes the sound. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Love it. Next to that is an amp simulator and EQ. This is where you can EQ your piano patches, EQ the synth. It also has a built-in low-pass and high-pass filter. And when you activate that by having both lights on the upper portion, activate the low-pass. Both lights on the lower section, activate the high-pass. Now, if it's just a single light, that's a twin amp. Yes, they're just different types of amps. So when the filter is activated, then it changes these controls. Now, the frequency is the filter frequency. You can change the resonance. Yeah, that. Yeah. When those are not activated, it's just straight up EQ. Yep, add some bass. Change that. Yeah, so it's great. It's great to have those options to do that. Beyond that, there is a built-in compressor and reverb. There are 6 different reverb settings. They're all great. And then you also can add a brightness to the reverb, and you activate that by, again, holding down Shift and tapping the reverb selection button. That activates the bright feature. So there's the piano with the bright. Hold 2. It's really super. Turn the bright off. Let's pull that back. Stage 2 is pretty nice, clean sounding reverb. Add the delay in, and you get a really nice effect. Hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please help me out by hitting subscribe. And if you want to be notified as new videos are posted, turn on notifications for that. There will be more videos posted as we take a more in-depth look at the various sections of the Nord, and also some ways that you can use different keyboard techniques and utilize different functions of it as a keyboardist. So thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great day.